Welcome back. I am taking you through our week and giving you some meal ideas today. As I am sure you can relate, we go through different cycles where I am just loving everything about the kitchen, everything I'm making, and just I feel like the ideas are flowing. And then I gotten in a bit of a rut these last few months of just not really getting to experience the same creativity that I had been, and not getting to find as much joy in providing meals for my family. And although we were getting fed and just serving dinner is the main goal, I do still like to enjoy different parts of it. It's where I can find some of the joy in motherhood and homemaking. And so today I am going to discuss some different ways that I brought that back. So one of those ways is mixing it up in the kitchen. I haven't done a pork roast in quite some time. I try to get the best quality meats we can afford, and I don't really have the best options for pork at this moment that we can afford, at least. So I haven't made it in quite some time, but I was able to get my hands on a decent cut of meat, and having that option kind of started the creative juices flowing and made things a little bit more exciting. We had just been kind of having a whole bunch of meatloaf and basic meals like that, which there is nothing wrong with, but definitely like to mix in some fun things here and there. And also another way is getting my sourdough starter out more. There are so many ways that you can use your sourdough starter, and we tend to get into a cycle of using it for the same things over and over again. I got to where I was using yeast a lot to make rolls for different dinners or for lunch for the kids, and I really don't love to do that. I certainly keep it on hand, and there's nothing wrong with doing it in a pinch, because I certainly had been doing it a lot, but I really wanted to get back into the swing of having sourdough and just feeling better about the breads that we are eating, because I do have a starter, so might as well. And my goodness, just so much more flavor. And I will say that sourdough is one of the areas that I find goes hand in hand with my creativity in the kitchen. The more I keep up with my sourdough starter, the more I take time the night before to just get something started in the mixer, or to get some dough mixed up in a bowl to cook for the next day. The more I do that, the more I realize that the kitchen can be an enjoyable experience, and doing that allows me to feel more prepared and feel a little bit more relaxed and know that, okay, I've got some bread at least for today. We know what to start with, and then we can go from there. And that's just really helped me to get kind of my groove back in the kitchen. And another thing that I wanted to do was start incorporating more homemade sauces, because even if you get really creative in the kitchen, unless you are spending a lot of money on a bunch of variety of food, you're going to be making similar things quite often, unless you have a big garden that you can kind of mix up the sides and such, which we don't yet. So we eat a lot of the same things, and one way to really mix that up is sauces. And we do get barbecue sauce normally, ketchup, mustard, a couple things like that. I try to keep our condiments really basic because it is hard to find budget-friendly quality sauces. And I had never tried a barbecue sauce before, so I finally did that today. Now, in true fashion, I did not even follow the recipe really in the end, but I'm going to link a delicious recipe that I did use to kind of start as a base point, just some ideas. That's mostly how I do use recipes, is I will look for kind of an idea of what's used to make it, and then I utilize what I have to do that, and doesn't really ever turn out bad. So this turned out really good. The kids loved it. I added a little bit more sweetness than I was planning to, so I think some of my flavors could have been balanced better to where I didn't need to incorporate as much honey, but it tasted really good and we enjoyed ourselves. And I made little barbecue sliders there with the shredded pork. And another thing that I love about a pork roast is that it just seems to last for like 18 meals, you know? Like, I don't know about you guys, but with little kids, you know, things can last for a little while, but man, pork roasts will just last for days for us, which I love because you can make it in so many different ways. I love doing any kind of Mexican dish with pork. It makes the best flavors for enchiladas, or just regular burritos, or if you do like a chimichanga type thing. Probably saying those incorrectly because I am not Mexican, but it is delicious. And so we used it for the sliders, and then the next day I decided to use it for pizza. So I have not done pork on pizza other than bacon in quite some time, and these are my favorite kind of pizzas to make, where I just clean out the fridge. And we had a pineapple, we had some leftover tomato, we had this red onion and some mushrooms, and I just went crazy and decided to use that same barbecue sauce we had as my base. As I've mentioned in some other videos, I'm not a huge fan of a red sauce for pizza. It's just not my favorite. And so since we had that barbecue sauce, although it is a red sauce, it doesn't taste like marinara. So I used that as my pizza base and went ahead and threw on all the veggies we had. I liked the use of the barbecue sauce for sweetness, but then to add in, you know, the onions for a little bit more of a savory blend. And I added some of that pork. So it was a really good flavor blend. And again, I had prepped our sourdough the day before, and so I already knew a basic idea of what we were going to eat that evening, which is something I would definitely encourage if you can, is just have one part of your meal figured out, because I didn't plan ahead of time to use that leftover pineapple that was going to go bad, or that half of tomato that we had from burgers a couple nights back. I just knew, hey, I'm going to make pizza. And then the rest is easy because I can just dive into the fridge and find everything possible. And when you cover it with cheese, you just really can't go wrong. You could stuff anything in there and it would be great. So definitely incorporating that sourdough has helped tremendously. And we loved this pizza, and we do have pizza every week, but it just kind of mixed things up. I was a little excited about the flavors and just getting to do some weird sides and blends, and I love especially when it works out. And I have a very non-picky family. The kids definitely go through their areas of pickiness, but for the most part, everybody's a pretty good sport. Another area that always helps with the enjoyment factor in the kitchen is prepping as many things ahead of time as I can. Even if it's just the nap time hour and I can get a few things chopped up, I'll do it. This day I did not really get to do as much as I hoped, but since I kind of already had my sourdough ready and I knew what I was doing that evening and already had the pork ready to go, I was able to kind of throw things together and just not really think about them. And these individual ingredients like this, you can do in the middle of, getting milk for little kids or holding children, and they can just be done absentmindedly. So I forgot to mention, in that pork, I did throw in a lot of ingredients from the fridge as well. So I added some apples that were going to go bad, some onions, some banana peppers. It made for a really flavorful pork, and that just then also makes for several flavorful meals. So don't forget to season your meat well, and you won't have to really season too much after that with your meals. We drink a lot of water in our house. We have a Berkey set up. It's not actually a Berkey, it is a faux Berkey. You probably haven't heard of that, but we made the container and added the Berkey filtration system to the inside. So we technically have a Berkey, but it doesn't look as pretty on the outside. But see, you probably didn't even notice that. So I will have to see if I can find the reel that I saw this tutorial for the Berkey maker, because it was definitely a lot more affordable. While we needed a better filtration system, but then, didn't want to necessarily spend the Berkey money. So we do have Berkey, so we're drinking good quality water, but it does get old. So we are trying to mix it up with some different options to quench our thirst and really get ready for the summertime too, because wow, when you're outside in our southern heat, you are needing to drink gallons a day. It feels like we are not drinking gallons a day, but definitely feels like it. So I've tried to mix it up with some fun drink options. I've been pinning different things on Pinterest to try out, and especially homemade sodas. So we do not make a habit of drinking soda at the house. I can't remember the last time we bought a soda that we have kept in the fridge. We will occasionally get a soda when we're out and about as a special treat for when we're shopping or something like that, but still not on a frequent occasion. So when we're having pizza or things like this, it's hard to not want to go back to those days of, soda and pizza that we probably all had at some point in our life. And so I try to add something fun to our meals like this and make it more of a fun family night feel. But as I'm sure you know, anytime you do anything from scratch, it's just more complicated and takes more work. But you can prepare ahead with a simple syrup. So that is pretty much the base for a lot of different drinks that you can make at home that are more of a sugary type fun drink. It's just equal parts water and sugar. You just heat it up until it's dissolved and let it cool. And then if you make enough of it, you can put it in the fridge and have it on hand for when you do want to have a special treat. So we have a couple different ones that we do. I've done a blueberry syrup. Oh, and just to clarify, this is a date syrup that you saw me drizzle on the top, not a balsamic, which I've done before and it's delicious, but it's a date syrup. So that was really fun. So this particular one that we're doing is lime juice and simple syrup and a carbonated water. You can use any carbonated water you want. I get one from Aldi. That's just a sparkling water. I would love to eventually have one of those carbonated dispensers where you can make your own at home. To me, that would be well worth the price because we would drink a lot of carbonated things, even if they didn't have the sweetness in them. We do a lot of like fruit drinks to where we'll put some frozen fruit in your water and have a little spritz of some citrusy something, and then add the fruit juice, like just splash of fruit juice. So just getting creative with our beverages and just kind of making things fun. And to me, I don't know if that's just me, but the more I am creative and the more I force myself to do a little extra and to think ahead and to kind of add some fun to it and dance in the kitchen with my daughter, the more that produces that creativity. And then this day I had prepped some biscuit dough a little earlier in the morning, so it at least got to sit out for a little while, and I needed to use up some vegetables. Our go-to tends to be like a chicken pot pie, but I didn't have any chicken ready, and to be honest, I just didn't feel like chicken that day. So I did have some beef that was thawed, so I said, well, let's just do like a beef pot pie type situation. So we got everything that we could from the fridge, so that ended up being onion and pepper and some leftover mushrooms, and just ended up making like a roux once I had sauteed up those veggies and beef, and it turned out really good. It's amazing how you can switch out one ingredient and a few spices, and it's honestly just a completely different meal. I did also add some corn. There's something about beef and corn, they just go together so well. And I wanted that comfort dish vibe, which for me, I don't know why, but that seems to go hand in hand. So I did that. We added some diced green peppers because I wanted to give it a little bit of a Mexican, just a hint of Mexican flavor, not like a Mexican dish, but just kind of mix up those flavors. We do a lot of the herbs and like rosemary and herbs de Provence and all of that with the chicken. But with beef, I just kind of always want to go like a Mexican vibe. Not real sure why, but it worked out. And I had some chicken broth. I don't really worry about having beef broth around because we don't have really any beef bones we can make broth out of. So I just try to make sure I have a chicken broth or a bone broth. And to me, you can't really tell a difference. I think the only way you could tell a difference is if it was like specifically a beef stew or something like that. So I just put the flour in and just let it thicken, and then added a little bit more of that chicken broth at the end just to make sure it was soupy enough to not dry out or anything in the oven when I was cooking the biscuits. And I added some milk just for a little bit more of a creaminess. And then anytime I do these types of dishes, I've cooked everything on the stove, and then I'm throwing it in just long enough to cook the biscuits, which is usually about 10 to 15 minutes depending on the size. And it all turns out delicious, and it thickened up nicely. I probably could use just a hair less milk, and it would have been a little bit more of a pot pie consistency. It was a little soupy, but you can see it with the large biscuits. It was totally fine because they soaked up all those juices. So that is how I have added more creativity back into my kitchen and just kind of changed my outlook on some different things. And I've been loving the results. So I would love to know if there are any ways that you guys bring creativity back into the kitchen. And we'll see you again next time.